Picture this. You've worked hard, sacrificed, saved. You finally do what every financial guru told you to do. You go out and buy an asset, a property, a car, a business, maybe even stocks on margin. You're proud. You feel like a real investor now. And then slowly, month by month, your bank account starts bleeding. The rent isn't coming in yet. The maintenance bill arrives, the loan repayment clears your account, the tax authority sends a letter, and one morning you wake up cash poor, asset rich, and completely stuck. This is not a rare story. This is happening to thousands of people right now. People who bought assets without understanding one critical rule. And today on Promise Invests, I'm going to show you exactly what that rule is and how mastering it could be the single most important financial decision you ever make. Stay with me for the next hour, because what you're about to learn could save you from a financial trap that destroys even the best intentions. I'm Promise Invests, and this is where smart wealth begins. Welcome back to Promise Invests. If you're new here, let me tell you what this channel is about. Promise Invests exists for one reason: to teach everyday Africans and people all over the world how to build real, lasting wealth from wherever they are starting. Whether you're in Lagos or London, Nairobi or New York, Accra or Atlanta, whether you have a little or a lot, this channel is for you. We talk about money management, smart investing, online income, and the mindset principles that separate people who build generational wealth from those who stay stuck in the cycle of working hard but never getting ahead. Make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell right now, because every video on this channel is designed to move you forward. Now, let me tell you a story. His name is Emeka. He's 34 years old, living in a mid-sized city in West Africa. He's a hardworking man, sells building materials, runs a small business on the side. For 3 years, Emeka saved up every extra naira he could find, skipped the nightlife, cut back on clothes, told himself over and over, one day I'll own property. And then that day came. He found a plot of land at what seemed like a great price. He stretched his savings. He even took a small loan to cover the rest. He bought the land, and then he waited for the money to come in. But here's what he hadn't thought about. He needed to build on the land before he could rent it out. Building meant more capital he didn't have. While he was figuring that out, he was still paying back the loan every single month. Meanwhile, his business was going through a slow season. His cash got tighter, then tighter. 6 months in, Emeka was stressed. A year in, he was struggling to pay basic bills. The asset he bought to set him free was the very thing tying him down. Now, was the land a bad asset? No. Was Emeka a bad investor? Absolutely not. The problem was timing. The problem was cash flow. The problem was that he bought an asset without understanding what it would do to his financial life in the short and medium term before it ever paid him back. And that is exactly what we are unpacking today, because this mistake, it's not just Emeka's. It belongs to millions of people who are trying to build wealth without the right framework. But by the end of this video, you will have that framework. Let's get into it. Let's start at the very beginning. What is cash flow? At its simplest, cash flow is the movement of money in and out of your life or your investment. When more money comes in than goes out, that is positive cash flow. When more money goes out than comes in, that is negative cash flow. And net cash flow is the number you're left with after subtracting all expenses from all income. Simple concept, but here is where it gets critical for investors. Most people look at an asset and think about the income it will eventually generate. They see the reward at the end of the tunnel. What they forget to calculate is everything that needs to happen and everything that needs to be paid between now and that reward. Let me give you a clean example. Imagine you buy a rental property. The projected rent income is, let's say, the equivalent of $800 a month. Sounds great, right? But let's look at the full picture. Your monthly loan repayment, $400, property taxes per month, $80, insurance, $40, maintenance reserve because things always break, $60, property management fee, if you use an agent, $80, total expenses, $660 per month. Net cash flow, $800 minus $660 equals $140 per month. That's positive, no, which is good. But here's the catch most people miss. What if the property sits empty for 2 months before you find a tenant? Those 2 months, your income is zero, but your expenses keep running. That's $1,320 out of your pocket with nothing coming in. Do you have that buffer? If you don't, you're in trouble. Now, here's a scenario that's even more dangerous. What if, in your excitement, you slightly overestimated the rent because you looked at the best case scenario, not the average? What if the actual rent you can get is $650, subtract $660 in expenses? Your net cash flow is negative $10 per month. You are now paying to own this asset every single month. This is what's called a liquidity trap. A liquidity trap is when your money is locked inside an asset. You can see it, you own it. It might even be growing in value, but you can't access that value. And maintaining it is draining your actual spendable cash. You are asset rich and cash poor. And this is where many investors, especially first-time investors, find themselves paralyzed. They can't sell because they'd lose money or break even. They can't afford to keep going. They can't use the asset to grow because they don't have liquidity. They're stuck. Now, here's the key question I want you to ask yourself right now. Before your last investment or before your next one, did you calculate your net cash flow, including all costs for the first 12 months? If the answer is no, that's exactly why you're watching this video today, and I'm glad you're here. Let's go deeper. So to recap what we've covered so far, cash flow is the movement of money in and out. Net cash flow is income minus all expenses. A liquidity trap is when your asset locks your money and drains your available cash. No, why do so many people, even intelligent, hardworking people, fall into this trap? That is what we're about to break down. Let me ask you something honestly. When was the last time you heard someone say, I just bought property, or I just bought a car for business, and everyone around them celebrated? We celebrate the purchase. We celebrate the acquisition. We admire the asset, but nobody asks, how does this affect your cash flow over the next 12 months? That question sounds boring, but it is the most important question in investing. Here's why people keep getting this wrong. There are 5 traps, and I want you to recognize every single one. When we find an opportunity we're excited about, our emotional brain takes over. We start imagining the future income. We visualize the lifestyle. We feel the pride of ownership. And in that emotional state, we rush. We skip the numbers. We skip the due diligence. We tell ourselves, I'll figure out the details later. But in investing, later is where the pain lives. There's a principle that experienced investors follow. Fall in love with the numbers, not the asset. The asset is just a vehicle. The numbers tell you if that vehicle will drive you forward or drive you into a ditch. Here's something almost nobody teaches you. When you acquire an asset, there are costs you pay before you ever earn a single dollar from it. For property, legal fees, title transfer fees, renovation or repairs, furnishing if it's a rental, agent fees. For a car purchased as a business asset, registration, insurance, first maintenance service, possibly modifications. For a business acquisition, staff salaries while you're getting up to speed, restocking inventory, rebranding costs. These upfront costs can be significant, and if you haven't budgeted for them, they hit you like a wall. I want you to think of every asset as having a cost of entry, and that cost of entry needs to be funded from money you can afford to spend, not from money you need for your daily life. Leverage, using borrowed money to invest, is one of the most powerful tools in wealth building, but it is also one of the most dangerous if misused. Here's the trap. People borrow the maximum amount they can qualify for, buy the most expensive asset they can get, and then assume their income will cover the repayments. But what happens when the asset doesn't generate income immediately? What happens if your regular income dips? What happens if interest rates rise and your repayment increases? Suddenly you're paying a loan on an asset that isn't paying you back yet. And if you're also relying on that loan money to live, you're one bad month away from a crisis. The rule of thumb smart investors use is this: never structure a deal where you need everything to go perfectly in order to survive. Build your investment so that even if things go slightly wrong, income delayed, costs higher than expected, you can still breathe. Every asset has a time gap. The time gap is the period between when you acquire the asset and when it starts generating consistent income. For property, it could be weeks before you find a tenant. For a business, it could be months before you reach profitability. For stocks or investments, it depends on your strategy. During that time gap, the costs don't pause. The loan doesn't pause. Life doesn't pause. And if you haven't planned for that time gap financially, it will break you. Here's a question I want you to sit with. How long can you sustain the costs of this asset with zero income from it? If your answer is not very long, you are not ready to acquire that asset yet. And that is not failure. That is wisdom. That is financial intelligence. This one is subtle, but it gets people all the time. Just because an asset is growing in value doesn't mean it's helping your cash flow. If you buy land and it doubles in value over 5 years, that's wonderful. But during those 5 years, if you're paying property taxes, loan interest, and maintenance, and you're not generating any income from it, your cash flow is negative the entire time. You can't eat appreciation. You can't pay your electricity bill with equity. Wealth is not just about what you own. It's about the relationship between what you own and what you owe, and how much real, usable cash is flowing through your life every month. The goal is to build assets that pay you, not assets that just look impressive on paper while slowly draining you. Now, here's what I need you to understand. Every single one of these traps is avoidable, not with luck, not with connections, not with a bigger salary, with knowledge, with a system, with the right rules. And that is exactly what we are moving into right now. Coming up, I'm giving you the step-by-step cash flow rules that every investor must apply before acquiring any asset. These are practical. These are actionable. And when you apply them consistently, they will change your financial life. Stay with me. All right? This is the section you came for. The Promise Invests Cash Flow Framework. 5 rules you must apply before acquiring any asset. Let's go through each one with real, practical examples. Before you buy anything, list every single cost you will pay in the first 90 days of ownership. Not just the purchase price, everything. Let me walk you through this for 3 types of assets. For property, purchase price, legal/conveyancing fees, taxes or stamp duties, agent commissions, renovation or repairs, initial furnishing if applicable, utility setup, insurance. Add all of that up. That is your true cost of entry, not just the price tag. For a business vehicle, purchase price, registration and licensing, insurance premium, full year upfront in many countries, first major service, fuel to get operations going, GPS or tracking if needed. For a business acquisition price, working capital needed for the first 3 to 6 months, staff costs, any system upgrades or equipment, marketing to announce new ownership, legal transfer fees. Your Rule 1 action. Before you fall in love with an asset's price, build a complete cost of entry spreadsheet. Know the full financial commitment even before you commit emotionally. Once you know what it costs to get in, you need to know when and how much the asset will pay you back. And here's the key word: conservatively. Do not use the best case scenario. Use the realistic or slightly pessimistic case. Stress test your projections. Ask yourself, what is the most realistic monthly income this asset will generate? When will that income begin? Not in theory, but in reality. What is the earliest I could expect consistent, reliable income? For a rental property, don't assume 100% occupancy. Assume 85 to 90% and build your numbers on that. For a business, don't assume your first month is your best month. Assume it takes 3 to 6 months to reach stable revenue. For a car used as a business asset, like ride-hailing or delivery, don't assume peak earnings every day. Account for days off, maintenance, downtime, fuel, and platform fees. Rule 2, action. Write down 3 income scenarios: best case, realistic case, worst case. Then make sure your investment works financially. Even in the worst case, this is the rule that ties everything together. Net cash flow equals total monthly income minus total monthly expenses. And by expenses, I mean all expenses: loan repayment, interest, property taxes, insurance, maintenance reserve, management fees, utilities, depreciation costs, your own time if it's relevant. Take your realistic monthly income number, subtract every expense. What are you left with? If the number is positive, good, but ask, is it positive enough? Is the return worth the risk and the capital you're deploying? A common benchmark used by property investors is the 1% rule. The monthly rent should be at least 1% of the total property cost. That's a rough guide, not an absolute, but it gives you a starting point. If the number is negative, stop. Do not buy unless, and this is important, you have a clear, documented plan for how and when it becomes positive, and you have the reserves to survive until it does. A negative cash flow asset is not automatically a bad investment, but going in without knowing it's negative and without a plan, that is a mistake you cannot afford. Rule 3, action. Build your cash flow spreadsheet for every asset before you buy. Monthly income, monthly expenses, net result for 12 months. Smart investors never invest their last dollar. Before you acquire any asset, you need a buffer, liquid cash that sits separate from the investment to cover unexpected costs or income gaps. How much buffer? Here's a general guideline. For property, 3 to 6 months of total property expenses sitting in a separate account. For a vehicle business, 2 to 3 months of loan payments plus operating costs. For a business acquisition, 6 months of operating expenses. This buffer is not an emergency fund for your personal life. This is specifically for the asset. Think of it as a financial shock absorber. When something unexpected happens, and in investing, something always does, your buffer absorbs the impact instead of your daily life taking the hit. Rule 4, action. Before finalizing any acquisition, confirm you have your buffer fully funded. If you don't, keep building until you do. This is the rule people forget after they buy. Once you own an asset, you need to review its cash flow performance regularly, not once a year, at least quarterly, monthly for new acquisitions. Ask these questions at every review. Is the asset performing as projected? Are expenses tracking with my estimates? Is the income growing, stable, or declining? What is my current net cash flow? Is there anything I can optimize? Assets are not set and forget. They are living, dynamic parts of your financial ecosystem, and they require attention. If you discover an asset is consistently underperforming, don't let pride or attachment keep you holding it. A real investor makes decisions based on numbers, not ego. Rule 5, action. Schedule a recurring calendar reminder every 90 days to review the cash flow of every asset you own. Let's do a quick recap of the 5 rules. 1, calculate your full cost of entry. 2, project income conservatively. 3, calculate net cash flow before you buy. 4, maintain a cash flow buffer. 5, set a regular review date. These 5 rules are your investment compass. They don't guarantee you'll never make a mistake, but they guarantee you'll never make an uninformed one. And in investing, uninformed mistakes are the ones that destroy portfolios. Now, why I want to talk about something that goes deeper than rules and spreadsheets. I want to talk about the mindset that makes all of this possible. Because the truth is, the numbers are the easy part. The hard part is training yourself to think and act like a long-term, disciplined investor. Let's get into it. I want to tell you about 2 kinds of investors. The first investor sees an opportunity and moves fast. They feel momentum. They don't want to miss out. They act on excitement and optimism. And sometimes they get lucky, but often they get burned. The second investor sees an opportunity and gets curious. They ask questions, they run the numbers, they sleep on it, they stress test it, and then when they're ready, they move with confidence. That second investor might seem slower, might miss a few deals, but they build wealth consistently, steadily, and durably. Here at Promise Invests, we are training ourselves to be the second type of investor, and the mindset that makes that possible rests on 3 pillars. There is a famous study, you may have heard of it, where children were offered 1 marshmallow now or 2 marshmallows if they waited. The children who waited, who could delay gratification, went on to achieve significantly better outcomes in life. Investing is the adult version of that experiment. Every time you want to rush into a purchase without doing the work, that's the impulse for the 1 marshmallow right now. Every time you slow down, run your numbers, build your buffer, and wait until the deal truly makes sense, that's on choosing 2 marshmallows. The wealth you build over 10, 20, 30 years will be shaped almost entirely by how consistently you choose delayed gratification. This is hard, I won't lie to you, especially when everyone around you seems to be buying, acquiring, posting about their assets on social media.
But comparison is the enemy of strategy. Your financial journey is your journey. Run your race at the pace that the numbers support, not at the pace that social pressure demands. Here's something important to understand. You cannot discipline your way to wealth. Not consistently, not long-term. Willpower is a finite resource. It gets depleted by stress, by fatigue, by life. What doesn't get depleted? Systems. A system is a set of rules and habits that run automatically, regardless of your mood, your energy level, or the pressure you're under. The 5 cash flow rules I gave you earlier, that's a system. A monthly budget review, that's a system. Automatic savings transferred to a separate account the moment your income arrives, that's a system. When you build systems around your financial decisions, you remove the opportunity for emotional override. The decision has already been made. The process just runs. One of the best investors in the world once said something along the lines of, "The goal is to engineer your financial life so that good decisions happen automatically and bad decisions require extra effort." Build your money system and let the system protect you from yourself. Here is one of the most underestimated truths in all of personal finance. Wealth is built quietly. It doesn't happen in one big purchase. It doesn't happen in one great investment. It happens in the accumulation of small, correct decisions, repeated consistently over a long period of time. Think of a tree. When you plant it, you can't see it growing. Day by day, it looks the same. But underground, the roots are deepening. The trunk is strengthening. And one day, seemingly out of nowhere, the tree is massive. Your financial life is that tree. Every month, you maintain positive cash flow. That's a root deepening. Every asset you acquire with a proper plan, that's a branch growing. Every buffer you build, that's the trunk strengthening. You may not feel the progress daily, but the compounding is happening. And if you stay consistent, one day you'll look up and realize you've built something extraordinary. I'm telling you this because I know how discouraging it can feel in the early stages. When Amika, the man we talked about at the start of this video, finally sorted out his land, built a small structure, and rented it out, the positive cash flow was modest at first, but he reinvested it. He built his buffer. 2 years later, he bought a second property using the lessons he'd learned. Today, he has 4 income-producing assets. His monthly net cash flow covers more than his monthly expenses. He is not rich by social media standards. He doesn't drive a luxury car or wear designer clothes, but he sleeps at night. He has financial breathing room. He is building quietly, consistently toward freedom. That is the Promise Invest's definition of wealth. Not flash, not flexing. Freedom. I want to pause here for a moment and speak to you personally. Wherever you are right now, whatever your financial situation looks like, I want you to know this. You are not behind. You are not too late. And you are not less than anyone who started before you. The people building generational wealth are not smarter than you. They are not more talented than you. Many of them just learned these principles earlier, and right now, today, you are learning them. That is powerful. Don't underestimate it. The decisions you make in the next 6 to 12 months, armed with what you're learning today, could set the trajectory of your financial life for the next decade. Take that seriously, and take it with hope. We've covered a lot today. You've learned why so many people, smart, hardworking, motivated people, fall into the liquidity trap. You've learned what net cash flow really means and why it's the most important number in any investment decision. You've learned the 5 traps: excitement override, forgetting upfront costs, over-leveraging, ignoring the time gap, and confusing asset value with asset income. You've learned the 5 Promise Invest's cash flow rules, the framework that keeps your investments healthy and your financial life protected. And you've learned the 3 mindset pillars that separate people who talk about wealth from people who actually build it. Now, what happens next is up to you. Knowledge without action is just entertainment. So here is your challenge. Right now, before this video ends. Step 1. Write down every asset you currently own or are planning to acquire. Step 2. For each one, calculate your net cash flow. Use the framework we discussed. Step 3. Identify the gaps. Where are you exposed? Where is cash flowing out without returning? What buffer do you need to build? Step 4. Make one decision, just one, based on what you've learned today. Maybe it's delaying an acquisition until your buffer is ready. Maybe it's restructuring how you think about an existing asset. Maybe it's finally setting up that quarterly review. One decision, grounded in knowledge. That's all it takes to start. I started this channel because I believe deeply in something. I believe that financial freedom is not a privilege reserved for a few. I believe it is a skill, and like every skill, it can be learned, practiced, and mastered. In Africa and across the world, there are millions of people working incredibly hard, people of extraordinary intelligence, resilience, and creativity, who are not yet living the financial lives they deserve. Not because they lack ability, but because nobody sat down with them and explained the rules. This channel is my commitment to change that. One video, one lesson, one rule at a time. So here is what I need from you today. If this video added value to your life, share it with your brother, your sister, your friend who just told you they're about to buy an asset without a plan. That share could save them from years of financial stress. Subscribe to Promise Invests if you haven't already, because every week we are here, breaking down the principles that build real wealth. Leave a comment below. Tell me, what is one thing you learned today that you are going to apply this week? I read every comment. Your growth matters to me. And remember this, write it down if you need to. Never acquire an asset until you understand how it will affect your cash flow, not eventually, today. That is the rule. That is the discipline. That is the path. On Promise Invests, we don't just talk about wealth, we build it. The smart way, one cash flow rule at a time. I'll see you in the next video. Keep growing, keep learning, keep building.